All right. Well, I am really excited to have Mike and Kim Farag in the Fully Alive studio today. The Farigs have been friends for over a decade now. I met them before they had kids, and now they've got a full house. Mike has been on the Disciples Made podcast in the past, sharing wisdom that he's gleaned while serving church and other faith-based companies through his specialty marketing agency, Fervor. I guess it's y'all's marketing agency, Fervor. I need to
Oh,
be
yeah.
more technical and accurate here, and that has everything to do with kind of the conversation we're doing today. So Mike is one of those guys that I grew to love very quickly, so quickly, in fact, that I did a rushed followers made. And for those of you who are familiar with the Fully Live app, that's normally a 6-month experience. Mike, I think we did it in maybe 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Just crashed through it. Reason being is I wanted him to be a part of an upcoming 12-month Leaders Made that was starting soon. And I'm glad I did, because it was in that time together that this podcast is actually happening. It was during that time Mike was newly married to Kim, and he was super intentional about establishing a healthy and vibrant marriage. But more than that, Mike was super intentional about making sure that every man in that group, there's probably 13 to 15 of us, was being super intentional with their marriage. So I can't wait for you to learn what we all heard, what's been discovered since then, and how that intentionality has blessed not just Mike and Kim, but their friends as well. Mike and Kim, welcome to the studio.
Oh, it's good to be here. Brian, thanks for having us. Yeah.
I'm delighted. That intro lasted a little longer than I expected it to. Sorry to drone on and on, but I'm really excited to have y'all here to share more about who you are. Kim and then Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself, family, hobbies, season in life, whatever's on your mind.
Oh, right now, homeschooling our 4 kiddos takes up the vast majority of my time. So we're in a very busy season with all the, 9, 7, 5, and 3-year-olds. So, yeah. So that's what I do most of my time. I'm a licensed counselor. I went to school, back to school. A couple of years after graduating college, and just felt the Lord calling me to go after some really poor counseling experiences early on in my life. Now I'm mostly just using those counseling skills on my children, my husband, and myself.
Very, very helpful tools.
Very helpful tools. But yeah, so I spend most of my days teaching little people now. And yeah.
Love it. Mike, what do you have to add there, brother?
Yeah, I mean, our season of life is a full season of life. Like Kim said, 3, 5, 7, and 9. 1 girl, 3 boys. So we have a second mom in the house that is made like her mama. They are very type A. Kim and I, are in a season that's busy and full. We have a vibrant marketing business. We also have a growing small little real estate short-term rental thing that we're doing with the Bonhoeffer as a strategic meeting space here in Kansas City. And we've got on our heart to continue just to kind of grow and go in ways that God leads us. And both of us have, kind of have a compelled mission to share our stories in one way, shape, or form in a way that would honor God. And so that's turning into some ideas for us for our future. And so we've got lots of things on our plates, and we kind of like it that way. We kind of both are big doers. We like things to do. Sometimes it's a little much, but right now we're managing to keep most of the things,
there you
within
go.
the guardrails.
Yeah, your Selah, your 9-year-old second mom, reminds me very much of my Hannah, and she very much gets it coming from her parents. So
oh yeah,
that's for sure. I love it. Hey, I don't have this kind of in our notes or anything, but you mentioned the Bonhoeffer. You mind telling us just a little bit more? Short-term rental, but it's a very specific short-term rental. So if you're ever in the Kansas City area, what's that about?
Yeah, I mean, Kim and I both decided that, the marketing business is a lot of fun. What we noticed at the marketing, one of the things that I noticed in the marketing, we do lots of strategic meetings, And there's just not great places for those. You're either in a co-working space with somebody knocking on the window, you're in a church basement, you're at a country club, but all of them are just really not made for really great strategic meetings. And especially in most of the nonprofit spaces, we're having board meetings and strategy meetings that I get to play in on a regular basis. And there just wasn't a purpose-built space that kind of catered to that. And Kim and I thought we were also maybe mature enough in our relationship that we could handle working together. So we thought, hey, let's go buy a building, let's renovate it, and let's make it for purpose-built for those kinds of strategy meetings. And so I kind of penciled out some dream it up, and then she makes it happen. And so we now have a short-term rental space called the Bonhoeffer, named after one of our favorite theologians, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Yes. And don't read The Cost of Discipleship if you don't want to get messed up, deep water. But both of us felt like, so I did kind of some of the front end marketing, and then Kim handles kind of all the day-to-day operation of that business. So
awesome. So Kim, Mike said that he thought his marriage was mature enough to handle going into business together. Where does he need to continue to mature and grow up based upon your observations since you started this project? I'm teasing.
Should I plead the fifth on
that question? Let's be real. This is where we go real deep. Let's do it.
If you want to go real, do it. I am messing with you. If you want to break in, feel free. If you've got something loaded here, we all have places to grow. If not, we've got a nice little set of questions to work through. You tell me. I was joking, but I'm trying to read your face here to see if you want to roll forward with this.
Yeah, the question's on the floor. How is working together with your husband?
I think it's one of those situations where you really just have to rely on grace, because we are both we didn't marry opposites. So we both have things that we like and how we like it. And so it's one of these, you just have to, a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation, getting on the same page, and then also knowing what's a hill to die on and what's not, and having grace for each other in those moments, to say, hey, like what's really important. Let's prioritize what's important, and then let's focus on those things. And then the other little things are just the little ancillary things. And okay, that's something I'm okay with him making a complete decision on, and I'm not involved in that, or no, I should be involved in that decision as well. So, and he's really good about bringing things to me and be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And I can either say, great, cool, or go forth, or I'll, chime in if I have an opinion on it.
That's really
I'm
good.
I'm normally not afraid to chime in.
And he probably appreciates that most of the time. And then appreciates the rest of it a little bit after it's been done, perhaps.
Usually he tells me after.
I love it. Speaking of, that was a great little exchange there. It reminded me of something that I learned from a mentor a number of years ago. It's basically, when you're not on the same page, ask yourself, what level of an issue is this? We talked about, was this a hill to die on or not? Well, for me, it's a 4. Well, for me, it's a 9. And then how do you, with great honesty and integrity, really do assess those things? And if it's a 4 and a 9, you just let the 9 go with it. I've just for what it's worth, you prompted that memory, that lesson for me. Well, that's pretty good negotiating. And from what I've learned in my 30 years of marriage, if you can't be honest and speak openly the way you've just described beautifully, and negotiate when you are seeing things differently, that's pretty critical for a marriage. So Mike, let's go back a little bit. I mentioned in kind of the intro that you were perhaps hyper vigilant. I don't know if you can be too hyper vigilant about something, but you were aggressively vigilant about planning well for a successful marriage. What is part of your story that made that so absolutely critical? And Kim, this is for you as well to fill in any blanks if you wish. But there was something special about Mike.
Well, Brian, having lost my first marriage and failed, at this endeavor the first time, I did not want to fail again. And I think that's where my intentionality, that's where my desire for probably even, some unhealthy moves towards how quickly I wanted to discuss things, all sorts of things kind of stemmed from this, I was chasing money and title and all sorts of other things, and not chasing my marriage very well the first time around. And so I was acutely aware of what was at stake coming into a chance at redeeming a new marriage, and what God was opening for me, and what was really helping me learn about me and learn about what marriage and what relationships were about. And I was learning that. And so I wanted to do it better than I did the first time. I really, really wanted and continue to want to do it better. That's kind of the new wave for me. Is like, hey, we can be better tomorrow than we were yesterday, and it doesn't have to be all the baggage like was carrying around. But certainly that informed my intentionality pretty big ways.
For sure. Kim, is there anything you want to add about that? Just how that impacted you early on, or anything?
Sometimes it drove me a little crazy because he was very intentional, and so he moved a lot slower than I probably would have preferred. But
Gotcha.
It has served us really well. His intentionality of leaning in to even just really hard stuff and conversations didn't always go perfectly, but a lot of times we needed to have certain conversations about things. I am by nature, I was born an avoider. I've had to work really hard to not be an avoider. And so he was very intentional about, nope, we're going to lean in. If there's something I see, we're having a conversation about it. So it's taken a lot of work, a lot of practice, but it served us well because things don't just sit and fester.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a flip side to that, though. There's a flip. So for me, Brian, like coming in, I think, my natural leaning now is let's get it on the table as soon as possible. Don't let it fester, to use Kim's word. Like, don't let it simmer at all. Like, let's go at it, and let's go at it now. Yeah. And yet that's the kind of processor that I am. I can process in the moment, and I like that, actually. What I've come to appreciate also and learn about Kim and our relationship together is there are two ways to process. There are other ways to process that aren't just my way.
Yeah.
And she processes things differently and at different times. And depending on what it is, sometimes we can do it in the moment. And sometimes it's like, no, this deserves more time. And she's been really gracious to me. And we had, early on, although we had lots of conversations, it was not a lack of communication. It might have been a lack of really great communication. And we have worked hard with each other. And we've both had to give grace. Like, I've had to give more time than I might have wanted. And she had to maybe go faster at times than she wanted. But together we have started to learn how to do that together at the right speed for the right kind of topic. But there are two sides of that, and we don't all process in the moment and come right at it. And that I've also come to appreciate. And sometimes I need, not just in our marriage, but in my business life and in my relationships with others. And she's been, very good at helping me see that side of the coin.
Even if it did drive you crazy in the midst of an argument, that it would be like, okay, just answer me. And I'm like, I'm not ready.
Well, what key insight, though? I mean, you guys are sharing such valuable insight, because there might be people listening to this that don't even realize that there are different ways to process that. Like when Carol and I first got married, she was the youngest. I was the oldest. I'm type A. She's type, like, I have 3 type A's that are older than me in my house. She never had a voice. And here I am demanding almost, in the most hopefully serving way possible. I need to hear you. I want to hear you. That's the way I know how to respect you. And I want to do this right. I had a little bit of that intensity as well early on in our marriage. And it took her time, and it was a discipline for me to recognize that and not, push so much, and give her time to think things through before she had an answer. So just being able to recognize that about each other and give each other that grace. Thank you for that. And thank you for pointing that out. That might be the most helpful thing people hear on this call today. So you come into this very intentional. What would you say were some of the preparations or commitments that you stepped into this marriage with, and how were those communicated to each other?
I mean,
Kim, let's start with you. Oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Says y'all are ready.
Okay.
Start with me. I thought, okay, never mind. We were discussing this a little bit last night.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
I mean, we certainly did what most people do, Brian. We did premarital counseling, and Kim loves premarital counseling.
No, I have no beef with premarital counseling. I think premarital counseling is an amazing thing, and everybody should do it. They should just do it well.
Yeah, there's that.
And it shouldn't be surface level. It needs to be like, hey, let's actually talk about what are some things that could be coming up.
I think we both feel like the understanding each other's expectations before you get into expectations is a prerequisite, a best practice prerequisite for somebody thinking about getting married, being in a relationship, doing good with another party. For us, we certainly did check the box, like, let's do premarital counseling. We did, and Kim's right. Like, it was, like, let's go check it. And, there was no, like, we want to discern what's going on in that space. There was no feedback loop that we felt was deep enough. One of the things that we did, I think we would recommend again and again, at least I would recommend, it was definitely good for me, was, we did a respite before, a solo trip. I chose a space just outside of Kansas City, Conception Abbey. That's a an area that is for lots of kind of spiritual sojourn, so to speak, that you could go to take a few days to prepare my heart, my mind to be married, to try to say, I'm going to do this different and better, and God, tell me how to do it different and better. And I think that before you enter the arena, is a recipe to write down some things, to codify in your brain what I like to call start well, stay well. It's a lot easier to start healthy habits and keep them than it is to change 2 years, 3 years, and to hope it gets better and different downstream.
Yeah, or try to make them up after the fact.
As you go, right? Like, maybe we just fumble around. I've never watched a CEO or a leader or a good thing happen that didn't have a modicum of pre-work and intentionality. Practice, as Ted Lasso would say, practice. And so I think Kim and I did some pretty good practicing. Now, she likes to give me a hard time about, it took me a little while to warm up to the, hey, I'm ready to get back into being married again. And it did. It was probably too long, but we were at practice. And, some people need more practice than others. So discern what that looks like for you as you think about marriage, as you think about relationships. Those are things that I think we did well, that did prepare us pretty well. We talked a lot about what we expected.
What were some of those expectations, Kim? Like, what were like, we got to have a common answer on this, or a way to figure this out. And I kind of want to attach a second question to that. where do you think most marriage counseling falls short and making sure you've dealt with those things?
Well, I kind of came out of the gate swinging when, I mean, even on our second date, I really laid out some expectations of what I wanted to do. Is this
Carol
what you
did
were
too. This
expecting?
is great. I'm having fun.
So we had been hanging out and had just started dating. And I told Mike, I said, just so you know, I'm going to stay home with my kids one day. And so it probably wasn't the best way to deliver that, probably not the best timing. Hindsight's 2020. But I use that as an example because I've seen multiple people who have, and that was a desire of my heart. My mom stayed home with us. Mm-hmm. It was a desire of my heart to stay home with my kids. That's not everybody's, but it was mine. And I had seen multiple people that did not have those conversations beforehand. And it was causing a lot of turmoil in their relationships because they had kids. And then all of a sudden their desire was, I don't want to go back to work outside of the home. I want to be home with the kids. And the husband's expectation was very different. Mm-hmm. And it was causing a lot of tension. And so, I mean, like I said, for better, for worse in my methods, but again, God's grace and saying, I'm going to cover how you approach that. But I felt it was important to get that type of expectation out there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to the marriage, premarital counseling, I feel like so often, yes, finances are a really big thing. And so they want to be like, hey, are you on the same page finances wise? Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, great. Are you on the same page faith wise? Okay. But then they don't take you to say, hey, what could be some hot button issues here? Let's just take a little time to examine maybe some baggage that you have. There's a lot of family of origin stuff that people bring into marriage, like a lot of family of origin stuff. And none of it's stressed. But in reality, it affects so much of your personality and so much of your way that you handle conflict. Conflict resolution was never brought into our premarital counseling. And yet you have to go back and look and say, oh, well, the reason I am acting this way and the reason I don't really want to discuss it is because that's how it happened,
in my house. Yeah.
In my house. And then how did it happen in your house? So there's so much, I think probably family of origin stuff is probably almost one of the number one things that is frequently missed. And it's, hey, we checked the box. Good. We did premarital. But then you are then thrown into living with that person. And, now it's all the time. And now you're interacting how your mother did and you didn't realize it. You're interacting how your father did. You didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So
you're in a crazy cycle and you don't know what to do. So I want to tie a quick bow on that because, the way a lot of people, and this is what you said this, but you didn't say it exactly this way. You said a lot of people will do premarital counseling to pass it so that I can go ahead and get married and feel like I did what I should do to get there. I would invite folks, as you are, to consider that a filter that you have to wade through and fight through to get to the other side. And you really do have a good advocate if they are prompting those big questions. You listed a few. What about finances? How much will you have in savings? How much will you risk in the stock market? How much, how will you budget? How will you tithe? How many kids will we have? There are so many questions that you do bring in from your family of origin that you just assume they're going to happen because that's what you bring in. And when those clash, like on Carol and I's first date, she said, my kids are going to go to a Christian school. Like, well, that's cool. That's
and it's not free.
It's not free. So it brings in, a whole lot of questions. Mike, we've heard Kim, what things were you bringing in and how did all those get communicated?
Yeah, I mean, expectations coming in and this sort of family of origin is a real thing. I also was bringing in, all these misses from a marriage that I had tried and been in. And so I was, acutely very sensitive to keywords and phrases or even some actions that might have even reminded me of something that I'd experienced in the past. And I thought, ooh, and it would be, so there was still some healing going on, for me. Certainly I'd spent a number of hours, a lot of hours in the counselor's chair, in my recovery, and a lot of time at the feet of the Father, asking and seeking wisdom and trying to be ready, so that my heart would be, repaired enough to be really good for Kim. Um, and but there are some, we all bring scars and hurts into that, and I certainly did too. And Kim, even at times, was so gracious when I was, I would revert back to what I call Mike 1.0, and that voice and that tone, the volume would not be the man that I hope and had prayed to be, that I would fall, back into that. And so she gave grace, and space for me to be able to, come back, repair. And so there was a lot of that kind of discussion early, Brian, for at least for me. And I felt like I asked forgiveness more times that first year or two, than I certainly wanted to. So
I love that. There's a couple things to highlight there really quickly. Being able to name something and categorize it like Mike 1.0 makes it easier to overcome that. So I love that. Another thing that you do that hasn't been brought up in the conversation yet is you're quick to journal about things that you do that aren't the best. You write them down, you own them, you process them, you share them with others, you get wisdom from others, and then you take it to Kim. I've seen you do that on numerous occasions because you've invited me into journal moments multiple times over the years. So valuable in providing success in that. So thank you for that. All right. So we've kind of talked a little bit about, coming into the marriage expectations and whatnot. You've been married now 12 years?
Oh.
12 years. So how do you maintain vitality in your marriage? What measurements, what check-ins? If you want to go all business, what are the leading and lagging indicators you look for here? But, what do you do to make sure you don't drift away from the incredible, basically startup structure that you kicked this thing off with? Either one of you.
When we were dating, we started reading books together. And we would read the book and we would discuss it. We've had a lot of different books, some really good, some not so good. But what we don't do as many as what we did when we were dating. That is one thing that we try to do. Like the one we're working on now, we've been working on it for almost a year. But I think that's a testament to our stage of life, not just because it's such a big book.
Oh,
it's just,
for sure.
It takes a long time when you have little people. So working through a book together, and then we discuss like, hey, like this section, I like this section, this is why. And hey, tell me more. The book we're reading right now actually has brought up lots of really good different conversations about how the topic was addressed in our house when we were younger, because that feeds into the relationship as well. So this has probably been one of the better books that we've had, just as far as the conversations and deeper understanding of each other's, influences and their life, I guess. So I would say reading a book together for me. Mike, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I love us, books together is super helpful because we both get insights and it leads to other conversations. It's not a silo. It's fluid. The rhythms that we're in now I love some of the rhythms we're in now. We have date day Thursday every Thursday. Guys, I can't imagine not doing this. I hijack time. It started off as let's get a sitter for Kim to have a little time away from kids. And then I went one day and I was like, I'm never not going again.
I invited you one day.
Oh, well, yes.
I did. I invited you along one day.
I love it.
And you just kept coming.
Much to your own chagrin, babe. Like,
much to your own chagrin. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, so it's time for us together. Sometimes we do a little bit of work on the business and the Bonhoeffer together. And sometimes we're just talking. Sometimes we're hashing. We're just running errands. But man, it is regular time together in our own airspace. And that doesn't happen without intentionality. We have 4 littles. If we don't put it on the books, it doesn't happen. We do check-ins pretty regular, and those check-ins include grade cards. Like, we will go and grade each other. How are we doing as a husband? How are we doing as wife? How are we doing on our we? This last year, we also employed a marriage coach. This is another one of, I just snagged in on Kim's. She had a coach that she was doing online on her own. It was going so well. I was like, what if we went? What if we used the Zoom coach? And this coach is amazing and a very talented communicator and has helped us. We are doing really well, Brian. We wanted to go from good to great, or uncover things that we knew might be there, even though we feel like we're doing good. And she did that for us. Those things have been great rhythms for us. They've been really healthy habits for us to employ to stay, what your word, vibrant, to stay vigilant. I think we're all a decision or two away from a bad marriage. I just think if you're not careful, it's pretty easy to put it in park, to make a bad decision, to make a series of bad decisions. And I just think if we're more vigilant and intentional, gosh, God is so gracious to give us really great things on the other side of that.
Yeah. That is so helpful. I'm at the age now where we're just becoming empty nesters, and a lot of our peers are becoming empty nesters. And I'm seeing divisions in marriage happen at this point because their common focus has just been to raise those kids and not build a relationship. And it's very, very painful to see. And I love your aggressive nature with this, of saying we don't want to just maintain. And that's kind of the language I use. How do you maintain vitality? And you're like, well, we don't want to maintain. We want to take more of that hill and make it better. You use the word rhythms. We want to create rhythms, not appointments. That was something that really stuck out to me. Weekly and regular check-ins. So your check-ins, your grades, is that monthly? Is that every quarterly? Is it 6 months?
It used to be a nice little annual retreat that we took ourselves on. Mostly we went to Colorado and did an annual retreat. We did a big grade. Sometimes we try to do that, like quarterly or something. Man, 4 kids and some businesses will mess you up in terms of rhythms.
Yeah.
So now it happens, when we can make it, at least an annual kind of check up, check in, where we, grade. I'll bring the notebook out and I tell her, hey, we should do the grade card thing. Our marriage coach was making us do that pretty regular. How's our like a grade, and we would give it a grade, and
nice.
Really helpful. That was happening on at least a monthly basis. So I don't know, babe, what do you like? How have you seen that over the years? It's changed certainly, but how have you seen it?
I mean, I would agree with we would try to go to someplace in Colorado and we could take the weekend, and now it really is. It's harder with little people because, you were talking, you were talking about friends that they're, once they're entering that empty nest stage, and I can see how easy that can happen. How easy. I think about if we are not intentional and asking how the other one's doing and investing time in, man, all the conversations go to kids. And then if you're not like, hey, we're protecting a family night, where we have our night that's just the 2 of us, and then a family night, and your calendar just fills up with all the things. And so I mean, it's hard to answer the grade card. We did a lot of, within our coaching sessions this year, we've done a lot of grade cards this year. But I would say that I think that's been really important as well, because it gives the other person a gauge just to see.
Yeah. It's that
where
gap
we are.
analysis.
Right. And like, we're off. Why are we off? What is it that's going on that's causing us to be off?
Yeah. Brian, back to your comment earlier, the 2 or the 10, it's like, hey, what is this for you? Well, if I say, hey, I think our we's a 5 or a 4 and she's at an 8 or a 9, something's off in how we're seeing it. And now we can dialogue about a real kind of like gap of sorts. And it's super helpful for us. And there's certainly been gaps, as intentional as we are, there's still gaps at times for us.
Can one of you kind of describe the difference? Like, I'm personally satisfied. I think we're good. Like, how do you get, because that's a very technical part of this process that a lot of people may not understand. Like, I think there's probably some people in here could say, okay, I'm giving you a grade, Kim, you're an F, and Mike, you're a D minus or whatever. Like, can you give us a quick, like, what's the breakdown of that? You measure like my satisfaction, what you perceive their satisfaction is, and that's how you compare to get the we. How's that work?
I kind of just look at it as how we are doing together.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because I have like my level of satisfaction, and a lot of times that depends on who screamed at me more today, the 3-year-old or the 5-year-old, like, so my satisfaction will ebb and flow based on the day. But how do I feel within our relationship between Mike and I is really at least what I feel like I'm grading whenever the overall grade. There's always ancillary grades.
Lots of times, Brian, when we grade, we'll do a 1 to 10 scale to be technical. We'll do a 1 to 10, not an A, B, C, D. I like 1 to 10s because it's more checkpoints to see kind of where you're at. And we'll grade how are we doing together, like Kim just mentioned. And then sometimes we have also done, how do you think I'm doing as a husband?
Okay.
And then I flip it, how do I think you're doing as a wife? And you'll grade this, like, how do I think I'm doing, right? Like, we still gap analysis this. Like, I'll say, hey, I think I'm a stud. I'm 10, I'm a 10. And, she'll bring me back down to the reality of, 9.8, so works out nicely.
There might be a good gap right at the end of this conversation. How long, Brian, did you stay on that call with them after you stopped recording? Yeah. There you go. Yeah. That's important, though. Mike, we share, and Kim, I don't know how much you're into this, but the EOS, Entrepreneurs Operating System, has quarterly reviews, and you get to review each other kind of prior, like a supervisor to a supervisee, and you do this prior to getting together, and you get to compare these ratings of each other in a way that's pretty immediate, and you got to be honest with those things. And that gap analysis, I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understood that. One last question before we move on these rhythms. The book, I've seen it to where couples pick a book that is basically a lot of life, wisdom or insight, and you read it and then you compare notes about how you've process that, which is so helpful because it gains insights that weren't necessarily front of mind. I've also seen it to where a spouse will pick a book that they think their spouse needs to read in order for them to fix them. Like, I want to make sure
that's a dangerous thing. You don't want to do that.
Thank you for that face along with those words. I just, I think about who's listening to this and what might they take away from it. Please don't grab a book that you think your spouse needs. Like, what do we need? It's team us that's fighting for this. If I'm trying to fix you or you're trying to fix him, that's just not going to fly. So any other comments you'd have on that, just as far as picking a book?
Well, yes. It does make me chuckle thinking about like picking a book to fix your spouse's issues when in reality they could probably pick a book to fix all yours too. So it really is like, hey, what do we need a topic on? And again, not all the books have been, you're going to have some that you're going to be like, yeah, we are not into this. This book is like either boring or it's just not resonating with us. And that's okay to like put it down and walk away from it and say like, hey, like this is not serving our time well. We're taking the time, let's serve our time well. But I think it's also important to include in the process, hey, I'm thinking about this book. What do you think? Not just, hey, I got you this book. Because honestly, the books that I did just buy and say, hey, I think this would be great for us to read, those were usually the flops.
Right. Interesting.
Versus the, like, when we discuss, like, hey, what's that book about? That may be kind of interesting. Let's do that. Like, I felt like we usually did better if we had communicated about the book before we started the book versus me just picking a book that I think we should do.
Oh, that's such helpful insight. Before we leave this topic, what would you say are the top 3 most helpful books that y'all have processed together? Certainly there's people wondering what those are.
Do you want to go over them, honey?
I can give you my top 2 for sure.
Okay. The number 1 we have not finished yet. So we say that because we haven't finished because it's taking us a year. Number 1 was a recommendation by a friend. And it has also been a impactful book because it is not written from the same perspective that this topic is addressed by churches, by even a lot of counselors even. It is a topic that absolutely should be a part of premarital counseling, 100%. The book is called Married Sex. It's Deborah Folletta and, I can't remember the other guy's name, but it's an excellent book. Spurred some amazing conversations just about like, hey, what were you taught about sex when you were younger? Hey, what were you taught? And then like really, because that is such a big issue within so many marriages. And churches, I don't feel like necessarily do young married couples service. And it's a taboo topic. When within the bounds of a healthy relationship, it shouldn't be. So that one's been really good. You said a number 2. What was your number 2?
That's definitely number 1. That'd probably be the number 1 and number 2 spot, but but for sure it's in the number 1 spot. Gary Thomas is the other author, babe.
Thank you.
Francis Chan, Crazy Love, fantastic book, easy-ish read. Just good conversation about a big, broad topic with a faith component that we resonate with. That one went really, really well for us. Spurred some really good, fun, long-term conversations before we even had kids, about what we wanted the house to look like and feel like and sound like and what kind of, so really, really helpful, and what we wanted our marriage to, resonate. So that was also good. So that'd be my, those would be my 1 and 2 spot.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Number 3 is probably 3 and 4 because we did it like we did John Eldredge Captivating and then Wild at Heart.
Yeah. Oh, nice. To understand both the male female
both sides. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Which was fun. I would agree. Those are good. Eldredge is also just a good, fun, read. Let's go be cowboys. So,
hey man, still burn something, blow something up. Yeah. Eldredge's stuff really impacted how I spoke to my young boys. Very, very intentional, and it's been
jump off the bridge.
Fun. Yeah, man, good stuff. All right, so thank you for that detour. Let's start to move toward the future. I'm hoping that what everybody can see so far on this call as they've watched the 2 of you interchange is the facial expressions lean in, the hearts lean into one another. That's hard to find, particularly when you're in such the kid mode. I describe the kid mode as like once you have your first kid, it's like you just handed the quarterback, just snapped the ball, handed it to the running back. You guys are the running back collectively. You put your head down, you start running forward, and then you look back up 25 years later to see where you are. It's just game on. But all right, so you're doing well. You set up great expectations. You've got really good maintenance touch points and like furthering the vitality of your marriage as you go through understanding. You also have dreams, Mike. You alluded to this early in our conversation. You have dreams as a couple to help many others thrive in marriage. You're not just in this for y'all's marriage to work. You want to see others. What vision do you have about this, and what plans are you making to accomplish that vision?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think both Kim and I have dreams. Most of them, we're very fortunate, are, close to each other. But I think both of us want and feel compelled to use our stories, however they were made in us and what God gave us in terms of a testimony to further the kingdom, to grow people, to maybe, minister in some way. As a divorced man, lots of divorced guys show up on my doorstep to talk. How'd you get through it? What'd you do? What didn't you do? How do I not maybe lose my marriage? Those things have happened to me over the years pretty regular. One thing that has really kind of caught my heart and attention is I think and I feel when I say something like, hey, let's talk about having healthy communication in marriage, it causes me to have to live like that. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. When I tell you, Brian, hey, I want to live like this, what happens is you'll do what good friends do, which is you'll ask me, how are you doing with that thing you said?
Yep.
And so sometimes I have to say it out loud because it will help manifest the actions and the behaviors and the disciplines to get there. And too many of us are being quiet about having awesome marriages that are thriving, and we're still not perfect. We're still there's still imperfection inside of that striving to be better. So I'm dreaming about us having a marriage ministry together where we get to go talk and minister to folks that are both dreaming about healthy marriage, maybe not having healthy communication in their marriage. And as a counselor and a professional communicator, maybe somewhere in the middle, there's some things that we can bring to tell some people about both our stories, but mostly the mistakes we made and how we got better after.
Kim, what are you seeing? Like, he used the word ministry. That's like an intentional something that gets put in a package and delivered. Like, fill in the blanks. What are you seeing there? What have y'all been talking about?
Well, first, let me say, Mike is the visionary. He will have the idea. I will talk about wanting to do something. He's the one that can foresee. I'm in the day to day, surviving, keeping the little people alive most days. And he sees the idea. I present an idea, or he has an idea, and then he will say, "Okay, well, this is how we're going to make it happen." And so, if he were not in this mix, I don't feel like I would have the same foresight to start walking down that path. The Lord has given me a different story. I'm not going to go into all of it today, but there's been a lot of things in my life that he didn't just allow just because. There's a reason and there's a purpose for all the things that have happened in my life. And to not share them and to not use those to help other people, I feel like would be doing a disservice to the Lord, and wasting the story that he gave me. And I think so often we don't talk about our stuff. And for many, many, many years, I haven't talked about my stuff. Just continuing to go on daily lives. But until we actually start getting our stories out there, and then people hear them and say, "Oh, I felt the same way," or "I had a similar experience."
Yes.
And I don't know how to talk about it, or I don't know what to do with it, or I'm still resentful and mad about it. A lot of the things I went through, I could still be very mad about or resentful about and carry that hurt. But that doesn't hurt anybody but yourself. Continuing to carry those things. And so I felt like it's been on my heart for a while that the Lord wants me to start sharing those things. And then the story when I have my story before Mike, and then I have my story when Mike came and into my life and how that has changed. my story in different ways that I did not expect as well. So I still don't know all the ways that, what that's going to look like. I feel like the Lord reveals little bits at a time sometimes. But yeah, so we're on a mission to like get our stories out there, because there's always somebody that needs to hear something.
That's for sure.
That may apply to their life.
I can feel a lot of ladies leaning in going, I want to hear more. And, because that's what we need. I think we're all kind of waiting for someone to take a first step into that vulnerable space, right? So we can feel permission and a sense of safety. And it's like, okay, I'm so glad somebody went there. So Kim, thanks for peeking the door open. And I can't wait for folks to be able to find out how to tap more. So I got 2 questions left. One is a turn it back question. This is something I've been doing the last 5 or 6 different podcasts. And it's oftentimes when I'm being interviewed, questions pop up in my mind that I'd like to ask the person interviewing me. Has any part of the conversation today caused you to want to turn a question back on me personally, particularly about this topic of marriage?
Yeah. I love the turn it back option. I think, Brian, one of the things that I was hit with in this rediscovery phase was that I needed good, wise counsel around me. You needed a Paul to speak into your life, some Barnabases to walk with, and a Timothy to breathe into. And I have tried to put people in those boxes, and you fill one of those boxes for me. And you're right at about the right age to be right ahead of Kim and I in terms of like, hey, you're on the flip side of what we're experiencing right now with little kids at home. If you could go back and do something different in your marriage at early kid stage, knowing now and looking at your marriage now, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
It is. That's hard. Fortunately, I actually wrote a blog about this called, if I could go back and tell, 25 year ago me, based upon the insight I have now. And it has everything to do with how we actually make disciples at Disciples Made and in the Fully Alive app. I would have the 2 buckets of character and calling, and I would keep them in front of my kids at all times. I had the calling one. I mean, one of my favorite stories of things that I really, really got right was identifying the spiritual gifts I saw in my kids from a very early age. Like when Hannah was 4 and still had her little pink Barbie colored room and trundle bed. I noticed one time she had the neighbor kids over and she was lining them all up. She was playing teacher. They were all a little younger than her, and she just had them, you sit here and you sit here and here's your pencil and here's your book and blah, blah, blah. And that night when we were laying in bed, or when I was putting her to bed, I just, Hannah, do you know that you have the gift of leadership? And I just read a little verse out of Romans 12 about leadership. I see that in you and I want to call it out. I want to name it and I want to cheer it on. And of course, if you've met my daughter,
pretty sure it's set well.
That was a good moment. That was a good dad moment. So it's like, how can I identify those calling elements and call them out? But I would have, what I didn't do as well was name character in the fruit of the Spirit. Like that's our very specific measurables. And I would focus everything on those 2 things. Those would be the constant filters. Those would be, like, to your point, rhythms. We didn't establish good rhythms. I would say I borderlined workaholism. I did just enough family time and prioritized just enough family time to where I don't think I'd put myself in that category, but I wasn't wise enough to establish rhythms like you're doing. I would do that with the kids, and I would review, how are you doing on character and calling? And those are just strategies actually for developing the 2 things we were created for, and that's intimacy and influence. So I would really do my best to unpack, what does it mean? Like, for Selah, your 9-year-old, what's the level of understanding that she has at 9 about intimacy and wanting to have great relationships? and how peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and self-control impact those relationships. And how do I coach her in that? And how can we have reviews of, like, if she blows up because she's tired, like which one of these 9 fruit of the spirit didn't come across that well, and what could we have done different? I mean, I would just rank it all. I would hang everything on those 2 things. Just because clarity is kindness. And so, yeah. But Kim, I got 2 people on the call. Kim, was there any turn it back question you had, or you want to share that one?
Now my question doesn't even seem like quite as good. Mike asked a really good one. I was going to take it because I know you've done a lot of pastoral counseling.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to take it down the personal level, so I'm glad Mike did. What would you say, because I'm sure you did some premarital, I'm sure you've done, all different stages of marriage. What would you say is the biggest thing most people need to work on when they're coming in for premarital? Like, hey, you should. I mean, you asked what I thought should be in premarital, but what do you think?
The biggest things that I see that cause splits in marriage is fights over sex, fights over money, and the inability to fight well. So have those things figured out. Parts of a person's story can make sex the most horrifying thought imaginable. And somebody's background can make sex almost insatiable. And if you're on polar extremes of that continuum, that's a rough go. And if you don't know how to negotiate, work that out, or find the help that you need to solve that problem, that's a hard one to recover from. Finances the same way. If you got someone spending money on credit cards that you just don't have, and you got another person who's been frugal and now their money's gone because of bad choices. I mean, those 2 things are big. And then one of the things that I would do as a counselor is I would give it would probably be 120 questions. How many kids do you want? How much do you think? And then blah, 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 blah. And then I would have them fill out that inventory separately and then compare notes and circle the ones that they disagreed on what they thought the other one would say. And I'd get them in a room and I'd have them talk about how they're going to solve that problem. And I was waiting to always find out how do you fight? How do you negotiate this? And if you start to fight, how do you fight? Because fighting isn't a sign of sickness, I don't think, in a marriage. How you fight is the sign of sickness. And so I would always want to help them learn how to have those negotiations or those disagreements at a much better level, or get them a prescription for how they're going to address that and grow in that over time. So great question. Thanks for asking. All right. So we talked about the work you did before you got married. We talked about the things you do as you're sustaining yourself in marriage. We talked about kind of goals and dreams you have for what you've learned in marriage and how to serve others with that. How do people get a hold of this ministry idea that you've got coming up? Do they reach out to you? What do we do?
Well, not to put Kim on the spot, but she's writing things at kimfarag.com. And I think people should read some of the things that she's writing about our little life, and our 4 kids and the things and thoughts and feelings coming out of this fantastically gifted woman. So that's one way.
KIMFARAG.com.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And as we are developing kind of what this means, what we're going to do, most likely the Fully Alive app will be one of the places that we decide, to release and start talking about. So This will be fun to see, what this matriculates over the next little bit. So and Kim and I are trying to figure out how and where to share stories. So there's some books in motion for us, and so those will be forthcoming as well. And so there'll be some fun ways to try to, for us at least, to try to make good on what's stirring in our hearts that we want to share.
That. So first steps, kimfarag.com. Kim, are they able to like leave comments there or engage you there? How does that work?
I think.
Yes.
You think?
Yes, they can. I am still learning all the nuances of the website and how to, but I do believe I have a comments section.
You do.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool, Mike.
He gifted it to me one year for Christmas.
That's awesome.
And so I know enough to post things and write things. So, but I'm learning and I'm learning the nuances of the site.
And that's a lot with little people, as you say, because little people take up a lot. Yes, that's one of the nuances of or not nuances, but next steps with the Fully Alive app is how can we become a strategic partner for people on mission like this? How do we give them a platform? How do we help them build community around the unique way that you're helping people live more fully alive? So I can't wait to continue our conversations there and for more and more folks to find their way into that growth of the app. So I just really appreciate the two of you. I mean, I just love you. I'm glad our lives intersect and have the ability to push one another on in loving good deeds the way that our lives do. And I really appreciate you being on the call today.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Can't wait for people to connect with you in the future. Godspeed.